You've worked at companies like ITC and Zomato and then decided to join ONDC as its VP.
That has been a steep career change and career shift for myself too. There was an inflex point when I got bumped into Koshi, who is the managing director of ONDC, who wanted me to join him and help him build a long-term sustainable strategy for something which world has never done.
The tech platforms do end up becoming monopolies in themselves.
Absolutely, Shrishti, and I see that trend is very prevalent in Indian market even today. So ONDC has a fundamental mission of, so that's what we internally call out in the boardroom, that it's about democratizing digital commerce and uplifting livelihood of those who are otherwise left behind. We are often presented with the question that you are a competition to us, why should we join you? As I say, that we are not a competition because we do not own the transaction and we do not interact with the customers directly, nor do we interact with the sellers directly.
Welcome to the India Opportunity Podcast. Our guest today is Anjani, the Vice President at ONDC, which is Open Network for Digital Commerce, an initiative of the Government of India to democratize e commerce for small businesses. Since we've previously talked about how India is really investing in digital public infrastructure like Aadhaar and UPI, ONDC was a natural next topic so that you can learn about the initiative which will completely transform the e commerce industry in India, especially for the small businesses in domains like mobility, food and beverage, grocery, fashion, and more. As they say, ओएनडीसी नेटवर्क पर अब हर बिजनेस के लिए भारत खुलेगा. Some of the most recent stats about their progress are over 90 million transactions since inception in January 2023. They process over 12 million transactions per month with over 600,000 sellers, out of which 80% are small sellers and businesses with presence across 1,200 cities in India. This is truly remarkable for an initiative that was launched just a year and a half ago in January 2023. Today, we will spend time understanding what ONDC really is, the need for an initiative like this, and the roadmap ahead. Small business owners and e commerce players can really benefit from this. So, if you are an entrepreneur or founder running an e commerce business, this episode will help you get a lot of deep insights about what ONDC really is and how you can benefit from it. Hi, Anjani. Welcome on board. Thanks so much for taking out time to be on the India Opportunity podcast.
Thank you, Srishti. It's always a pleasure to speak to young people like you, and that helps us keep going closer to the market. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Awesome. Would love to do a deep dive on ONDC. I think everyone's talking about it. India's got attention on it for sure. And, so many small businesses can benefit from it. So that was a big reason why we wanted to cover ONDC today. So, Anjani, let's start with a little background for our audience. You've worked at companies like ITC and Zomato and then decided to join ONDC as its VP. Tell us a little bit more about your personal journey and what inspired you about ONDC that you decided to go all in.
That's one of my favorite question because that has been a steep career change and career shift for myself too. I'm a chartered accountant by profession. I started my journey with ITC, did broadly nine years in that company, doing two broad roles around business finance, controllership, strategy, and so on and so forth. Thereafter, I moved to Zomato as a head of business finance for 2 years with them. And that point in time, there was an inflex point when I got bumped into Koshi, who is the managing director of ONDC, who wanted me to join him and help him build a long-term sustainable strategy for something which world has never done. I chose to join ONDC because it was for a much larger mission and giving it back to the society and helping the smaller people get uplifted in the society who are otherwise left behind. So it was a great moment for me, and I thought, like, let's do it.
Amazing. And, when you were thinking about long term impact and your role in the society, what specifically in the ONDC mission stood out to you?
So ONDC has a fundamental mission of, so that's what we internally call out in the boardroom, that it's about democratizing digital commerce and uplifting livelihood of those who are otherwise left behind, right?
Yeah.
So if you see India penetration in digital commerce on the buy side, it is almost around 7%, while on the sell side, it is less than 2.5%. So I see a lot of headroom to grow, and this is a very low hanging fruit. with given the experience which we bring from legacy organizations such as ITC, or maybe marrying it with a contemporary organization, very hyper fast paced Zomato, I believe it's a well placed pitch for me to take it forward from there.
Let's zoom out and talk about the lay of the land of the e-commerce industry in India. What are your views on the current landscape?
Yeah, if you see, India is a $30 billion e-commerce ecosystem currently, and I see India is more of a oligopoly market, be it a ride-hailing ecosystem wherein two large players such as Ola and Uber are dominating the major market share, and Rapido is just making a entry into the market and having its play. While if you come to the goods ecosystem, again, there are broadly two large players such as Amazon and Flipkart who takes care of the entire market. And similar trends are seen in other players like other ecosystem or markets such as fashion or say food ecosystem wherein Zomato and Swiggy are dominating. Quick commerce, if you see Zepto, Blinkit, and Instamart are dominating. So we see that India is an oligopoly market and there's a high concentration and amongst a few players which prohibits or restricts smaller players to come on board and make a business out of them. And this problem is prevalent even outside India. It's not an India specific problem. uh, Taking this question straight forward to why ONDC and how ONDC makes a use case over here. So if you see this, as I rightly mentioned, that the oligopoly market structure is prevalent across the globe, while the Westerns have taken a position to introduce digital commerce laws to protect this and democratize this, while China took a dictatorship approach. India had a choice: should we leverage technology, or should we also introduce laws like Westerns have done? uh, India had a good success in a decade around digital public infrastructure with advent of Aadhaar, UPI, FASTags, CoWIN. So we said let's make a larger play when it comes to digital commerce and solve it once for all. If we also believe that if we introduce new laws, we are taking a control over the business of business houses, and that's not where the government should actually do. We always believe that power of business should be left to the people and the business owners, while we only ensure that the right controls and checks and balances are there, so that there's a fair play in the entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that's why we believe that introducing ONDC on larger DPI principles could be a good choice. And there we are with ONDC, wherein we are trying to democratize digital commerce without controlling the business in any which ways. My managing director often says that we are the club owners, but we will not want to control how people want to enjoy in the club, right? We leave the freedom for them to enjoy, only setting the hygiene rules that everybody is participative in the club and nobody is feeling awkward.
Love that analogy. And, because if we compare it to what's happening in the US market, there's a big push, which, and this is a nature of public debate also because the political elections are coming up. So, everyone's talking about how big tech has a big pushback on the economy, or like, they are trying to break up big tech in a big way. So, do you see that kind of trend also happening in India? Because the tech platforms do end up becoming monopolies in themselves, and like you were mentioning, the top 2 3 players will control the rest of the market. So is that a trend that you're seeing in India? Which is why the advent of initiatives like ONDC becomes even more critical.
Absolutely, Srishti, and I see that trend is very prevalent in Indian market even today. And what happens that this larger e-commerce, not that I have anything harsh feeling for them. In fact, they are the one who have created a market, and we value them deep inside our heart. But what happens is that there's a natural rent seeking tendency among these players because they have to prioritize the interest of their stakeholders or shareholders, right?
Yeah.
In this advent, what happens that smaller players who do not have appetite to shell out high margin of to their business, or who are not very technologically enabled, are left behind. They find it very difficult to participate in this digital commerce. So hence I said that on the seller side, if you see, uh, uh, 90% of India's business houses are MSMEs, right? Only 2.5% have been able to make a headway or capitalize on the benefits of digital commerce. While on the buyer side also, a lot of loyalty programs have started leading to a preferential treatment being accorded by large platform aggregators. This is where we believe, a disbalance is starting to happen in the ecosystem, and this is fundamentally trying to restrict the next level of growth. With ONDC's advent, we believe that in near future we can open up the market to almost $100 billion, which is currently at around $70 billion. So like that's an easy one for us.
Yeah, what fascinating numbers and scale, right? Like talking about a scale of $100 billion is truly exceptional. But people may have heard of ONDC, but may have very limited understanding of the initiative overall. Can you please tell us what ONDC is and what was the need for this push by the government of India?
Yeah. So as ONDC is an acronym to Open Network for Digital Commerce, it is an ecosystem or a set of protocol which is built on the principles of digital public infrastructure. A chapter which is very close to heart to India and has been one of the primary focus area even in the recent G20 summit. Uh, and we say that ONDC is nothing but a set of common APIs built on DPI, which primarily unbundles various components of digital commerce and makes them interoperable so that various participants in closed network are able to interact with each other seamlessly and freely. Right? Sounds very, very technical, but let me decode this further. The primary role which ONDC plays in a digital commerce is only enhancing the discoverability between buyer and seller. Today, what happens that if you have to commit a digital transaction on any of the platform, both the buyer and the seller have to be on the same platform. Right? Just take example of say Mintra for an example. If you have to buy a Levi denim, the Levi denim seller and the Levi denim buyer, say Shrishti in this example, both have to be subscribing to Mintra. Right?
Yeah.
What happens with ONDC's advent is that we break this monotony and we say that now the buyer and the seller need not be on the same platform. The seller can join the digital commerce ecosystem through any of the seller application which is ONDC protocol compliant, and buyer can join the ecosystem or transact on the digital commerce ecosystem through any of the buyer application which is ONDC protocol compliant. Now, if buyer and seller both are not on the same platform, even then they can do a seamless transaction in the trade, just like it would happen in any other existing e-commerce with any other existing e-commerce players. Right? So that's fundamentally what ONDC is solving. So there's a lot of market notion that what is ONDC? Is it a Me Too platform trying to compete with existing players? Is it a government application? Is it a super application of all their application? Is it a marketplace of all the marketplace? I say no. We are none of these. ONDC never intends to get into transaction, and ONDC will never compete with any of the ecosystem participants. We are not a competition, but it's an enabler to the business houses to take their business level or to take their growth levels to the next next level so that they can grow enormously with this power of network based approach. ONDC is fundamentally a set of protocol which is a back end change and not a front end change, right?
Right. That's very interesting to understand very deeply, right? Because there's been a lot of talk in the market about, there are public listed companies now like Zomato and Paytm, and what the impact of ONDC will be on those publicly listed stocks. But what I'm hearing from you is that there's a very collaborative approach rather than a competitive approach. Let's talk about that a little more, because I'm sure these discussions happen on a regular basis within ONDC's team and the other ecosystem players. So, what do those discussions look like overall?
Absolutely. So any participant, so whenever my team meets with any of the clients to present them a business case and explain them what ONDC is so that they can come on board, we are often presented with the question that you are a competition to us, why should we join you?
Yeah.
Right. As I say that we are not a competition because we do not own the transaction and we do not interact with the customers directly, nor do we interact with the sellers directly. We are just a code level change on the core source protocol or core source of existing platform. So when it comes for players like Zomato and Flipkart or say uh, Paytms of the world, whether listed or not listed, like Ola is a fairly big company, but yet IPO is still underway. So we say that we help you enable the business and unlock the next level of growth for you. Let me present that as an example. And before presenting an example, how this can happen? This can happen either by growing their existing business or also helping them enter into complementary allied business services without owning the operations altogether, right? Let me give you certain examples how this can happen. Let me take an example of Zomato, which is a food delivery marketplace. Their largest cost on the P&L today would be around delivery cost,
Yeah.
delivering food from one place to another, right? My market intelligence or my basic sense says that this cost would today hover around 40 rupee to 50 rupee per order for a 3 kilometer distance.
Right.
Now, ONDC allows them to buy logistics as a service from the network, right? And the cost is significantly low. Today, Ola is one of the network participant who is offering a flat rate of 25 rupee per order for 7 kilometers. Right? That's a
Wow.
huge delta, right?
Yeah.
It's almost, I would say, nearly halving the cost they have. Right? While
And that
Zomato
too
has
at a scale of like say 10 lakh orders a day, which is what the current scale of Zomato and other platforms has become.
let's double that number. What my basic math says that Zomatos and Swiggies of the world today deliver almost 20 to 22 lakh orders per day.
Right.
And within Bangalore market, if I were to interpret what Economic Times had quoted a couple of days back, that ONDC has already achieved 18% market share. Not that these numbers are validated because we do not have access to Zomato's number or Swiggy's number, and we respect their business privacy.
Right.
But even if I were to decode that, it's almost 2.5 lakh orders per service providers in a Bangalore market. So at that scale also, if we can deliver a savings of almost 20 rupee per order,
Yeah.
this can help these business players enhance their path to profitability. And that's the
Right.
whole mission which ONDC is starting with. Take a case of Paytm. Paytm has been primarily a search-led QR code payment application, and there was unfortunately where they had to undergo a lot of statutory challenges was posed by RBI for right reasons. Uh, ONDC presented them or offered them a right business strategy that they can leverage their customer base and ensure the stickiness to the application by providing or entering into complementary services. Today, if you go to Paytm, you can buy food from Paytm, you can buy
Yeah.
groceries from Paytm, right? You can buy beauty and personal care products from Paytm. You can buy gift cards from Paytm. Does Paytm uh, owns the operation of these businesses? Absolutely no. They are just a buyer interface, while the seller interface is somebody else who is powering them with the supply on the network, on the application or the platform. So even if their core business went when the core business went for a toss, they already had a alternate plan B ready so that the market is also stable.
Yeah.
Right? Let me also present you with one more example. Take a case of Ola. Ola had done 3 attempts to enter into food ecosystem while owning the end-to-end value chain, right? And for some reason or the other, they could not succeed. Today, they have entered the market of food ecosystem once again through ONDC's network, and they are almost doing 40,000 to 50,000 transactions per day in the Bangalore market. That's a huge number.
No, that's fascinating. As someone who's so deeply in the ecosystem, I also didn't know these examples. So I'm sure the broader audience might not be aware of the scale that ONDC is facilitating in terms of working with these large players. Are there also other platforms that you end up working with? Because, one can then also say that, you're making the larger platforms stronger. But what about the new age platforms that are coming up? So what is that approach? At what scale and time frame does a new platform approach ONDC to become a potential partner?
Perfectly fine. So when it comes to a smaller application, while these are the three names which we just discussed were very large applications who have got a very strong muscles, be it from a capital perspective as well as tech capability perspective.
Yeah.
Let me give you example of two smaller application. One which has made a huge progress, while the other is just brewing. The coffee is brewing in their office very strongly, and I'm very excited to have that coffee soon. Let me take the latter example first, which is My Store. So My Store is one of the network participant who has joined ONDC both on the buyer side as well as the seller side, right? These players used to do around 600 to 700 orders per day around a year back. Today they are almost touching or just lingering around 5,000 kind of orders per day. So that's the growth we have seen there, right? So yeah, let me take an example of Kiko Live. We saw them on Shark Tank 3 this time, and they took the first step to digitize the ecosystem of Kirana and digitizing them, and their entire business model is based around ONDC, right?
Yeah.
So, and they are doing fantastically well. They are almost doing. They started with ONDC and are almost doing around 6,000-7,000 orders per day today.
Yeah,
Right?
and there are other companies also, very smaller startups. Some of them have pitched to us recently around building things like conversational chatbots for
Yeah,
ONDC, where you can go on WhatsApp and order anything from any
yeah,
store nearby. And there are also other platforms which, like you said, are enabling Kirana stores or local mom and pop stores in a big way.
yeah.
So that is true ground level innovation in its true sense, right? And we're clearly seeing the impact of that happen. So, any other success stories that you want to highlight?
Absolutely. Let me take an example of N Store, one of a network participant who has leveraged the same concept of conversational mechanism to democratize digital commerce. So they have built an entire ecosystem or the engine on WhatsApp through which any seller or any mom and pop store can come online on digital commerce in less than 5 minutes. Right?
Wow.
While in an existing platform centric approach, it takes a couple of days and lot of to and fro between the platform owner and the seller. Right?
Yeah.
So we strongly believe that if we have to democratize something and we have to change the larger narrative, lot of it will have to be on a DIY basis and an unassisted basis.
Yeah.
So, and WhatsApp is a very, very deeply penetrated application, and everybody देश के हर नागरिक use करते हैं.
Yeah.
So I think that's easier to do that.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And the Indian government is really investing in digital public infrastructure like Aadhaar and UPI, which have now become global success stories. And now ONDC is emerging as a phenomenal success story as well. So please tell us about the progress of the initiative so far and what the roadmap ahead looks like. Is ONDC also going to be an export product from India?
Yeah, yeah. So we started our journey back in January 2023, and since then, till date, we have done almost 90 million transactions across 11 domains. Monthly, we are doing almost 10 to 12 million transactions, and daily, we do around 4.2 lakh transactions across 11 domains. We broadly split our domains into two parts: the mobility and the non-mobility, right?
Yeah.
And we have a robust pool of 6 lakh plus sellers from 600 cities who are delivering to 1200 plus cities across India. Uh, 50% of our orders comes from tier 2 plus cities, while 80% of the orders comes from small sellers of India. So that's true. That gives us a strong ethos that we are truly democratizing digital commerce. As on date, we have almost 25 buyer applications, 65 seller applications, and more than 17,000 plus of them are in advanced stages of integration. Uh, as we strongly believe that the power of digital commerce and open source based digital commerce is enormous. As on date, we are just scratching the tip of the iceberg tip. uh, there's a lot and lot to do, and then number of transactions in near future would be in many millions. While I would not want to share the exact targets we have taken internally, but uh, even when I think about those targets, uh, it gives me a lot of goosebumps. And whether it is achievable, I think this is a team who can easily do it. And if we can't do, nobody else in this world can.
Amazing. I love that confidence. And I think such phenomenal numbers to talk about in just less than 2 years, right? So, if you truly play this out over the next 5, 10 years, I think the opportunity ahead of us is enormous. And you're already talking about $100 billion market. But I think, as we grow as a country, this market size number will also be very different in the next 5 to 10 years. Do you have any estimates that you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, definitely. So if you see that, let me take example of existing players on a platform-centric approach. The two largest ecosystem player in India today does around daily 32 lakhs to 33 lakh kind of orders per day, right? And as I
Right.
just mentioned, that ONDC does almost 4 lakh orders per day. So we are already 12% of each of them in less than 1.5 years, right? And when
Right.
we come to a and if I were to take all the applications, all the major applications of India taken together, our sense say that they do 15 million orders per day, right? And that basically translates to that ONDC has already achieved 3% of their combined order volume in just 1.5 years, right? So those are
Wow.
the interesting stats, which keeps us motivated every day.
And you mentioned that one of the primary missions for ONDC is to foster innovation across the country. Can you share some stories of innovation that have stood out to you over the last 2 years?
Definitely, Srishti. So I will share a revolution which ONDC has created into the mobility domain and a story which is very close to heart to me. So if you remember or if you see how a ride-hailing ecosystem works today is that the driver needs to pay to the platform a commission on a per ride. Right?
Yeah.
Uh, there's a player called Namayatri who joined ONDC to to democratize the ride-hailing ecosystem and create a and uplift the livelihood of the auto rickshaw and the cab drivers and help them enhance their net takeaway at the day end.
Yeah.
So Namayatri came up with a very, very different business model, a very, very innovative business model, wherein they said that I'm not going to charge drivers a commission on per ride. Right? All driver needs to pay is a very, very nominal subscription fees on a daily basis to log into the application. That subscription fee is as low as rupees 25 per day. Right? So the driver only pays rupees 25 per day to log into the application of Namayatri, and after that whatever rides they get and whatever earnings they do have on those rides, every money goes back to the rider, nothing goes to any of the market aggregator.
Right.
So, and what my understanding is that the commission in ride hailing ecosystem today is as high as 30%.
Yeah.
So the driver's income straight away increases by that amount. And for a some for a participant who comes from a below poverty line or somebody who is on the bottom of the pyramid today on the economic scale, I think that's a huge number for them.
Yeah.
Uh, the power was and the pressure was so much that the Olas and Ubers of the world have gradually migrated to the subscription based model rather than a commission based model.
Yeah.
While Namayatri may not uh, be able to scale at the pace which they were growing till now. But I believe that's very, very temporary, number one. Because as more and more riders join Namayatri on the supply side, and they are very, very willing to do because that gives them a sense of ownership that ये हमारा application, हमारी खुद की
Yeah.
application है. Because there is no aggregator concept in this
Yeah.
case, right? So they believe that it's a community-led application. And number two is that this is a very, very temporary, stability of the growth in the application. But I mean, as the service levels improve further, while we are already at an industry benchmark service levels, but as we improve further, I think the sky is the limit after.
Yeah, very interesting because so far the e-commerce industry was all about aggregator-led models, right? And what you're talking about is a community-led model, where even for example, like anyone who's ever had a conversation with an Uber or Ola driver, I think their biggest pain point was about all the costs associated, which they weren't privy to before becoming a rider. And unfortunately, sometimes it really impacts them in terms of their ability to be able to pay for their expenses and a bunch of things like that. And with platforms like ONDC coming into the picture, that there is a real power shift which is happening in the ecosystem. So do you think the models like aggregator models are now going to be outdated very soon, or do you see that something else will replace the aggregator led play?
So, Srishti, I put it this way that ONDC is primarily to enable business and to foster a deep innovation. Right?
Yeah.
We do not have anything for non-aggregator based model, or we do not have anything against the aggregator based model. As I said during the first part of our conversation, that we are the club owners. Right? We will
Hmm.
only set the hygiene rules of the club, while how somebody wants to do business is completely left to them. Right?
Right.
I see in a long run, on a personal level, I believe both the business models will prevail. Somebody who has got a very high customer traction and a deep customer connect may be able to survive even with a rent seeking tendency to some extent, while those who just join the ecosystem or the smaller babies of the world uh, may resort to subscription based model for some time and eventually market will correct itself.
Yeah, and that too in a market like India, where everyone used to think that India doesn't want to pay for subscriptions. But I
Yeah,
think as an investor, that is also a big shift that we are seeing, where a lot of consumer tech companies have been able to charge subscriptions. So I think people are getting
yeah,
warmed up to the idea of paying for subscriptions,
yeah,
and that has been enabled by some of the big tech companies which were building in India as well.
yeah,
But let's dive deeper into how ONDC has uplifted the livelihoods of smaller sellers, because that
yeah.
is real ground impact that ONDC has been able to show. What are some of the
Hmm.
challenges of small businesses that ONDC has been able to solve?
So, as I said, that 80% of our businesses today comes from smaller sellers. Right?
Yeah,
Uh, Let us first understand what is a key challenge because of which smaller sellers have still not been able to join the digital commerce, and why the number is a number around penetration is as low as low single digit. Right? So whenever somebody has to join digital commerce, the first and the fundamental revolves around cataloging. Right? Somebody has to join the, somebody has to first choose the participant through which they want to join, agree to their terms and conditions. Uh, it's not a mutual terms and condition. It is largely a one-sided term and condition.
yeah,
So somebody will have to, first agree to those terms and condition. Second is that once they sort out these administrative issue, there's a huge effort which goes into cataloging and uh, maintaining the inventory on a real-time basis. Like, otherwise, so cataloging further involves, updating the pricing, updating the images, having the right information shared to the customer, and of course maintaining the stock levels, and these are very, very dynamic information.
yeah,
If any of these pillars goes wrong, what happens is that the customer experience goes for a toss and there's a stock out which happens, right? So this is what we believe can be solved through a very large technological intervention. And ONDC has taken a lot of efforts around crowdsourcing, crowdsourcing solutions through zero code or no code based approach, so that the smaller sellers are able to operate into DIY kind of concept. For example, uh, take an example of onboarding a seller or somebody joining the network. Today, in a platform centric approach, this may take as high as a couple of days, while uh, Store, one of our network participants, in partnership with Meta, who is the WhatsApp primary owner,
yeah,
has built a very innovative conversational interface through which anybody, any seller, uh, smallest of them, can join the network in less than 5 minutes without being very, very tech savvy. Because today everybody knows how to use WhatsApp. That's a fundamental shift which has happened in India. And what happens is that these sellers need to only key in very, very basic KYC information, and they are already live. When it comes to cataloging, there are a lot of players in the market who have joined the ecosystem to offer cataloging as a service. Right
yeah,
today, if somebody wants to join a network by offering a papdi chart, and the image broadly remains same, so we take away that pressure on the seller to click the image, which costs around 60-65 rupee per shot. That's a very expensive affair for them. So
yeah,
network together, crowdsources the catalog and provides them a solution. Right? There are many, many ecosystem players, you know, who have who are offering solutions, simple, very DIY, intuitive solution for helping these sellers maintain their inventory. So we recently concluded a flagship event called Built for Bharat, which was basically launched a nationwide hackathon where 27,000 plus participants joined us. And the fundamental mission of this hackathon was to crowdsource simple solutions, DIY solutions, which can be implemented at a large scale. And Srishti, we were amazed to see the solutions which we have got from participants. Right?
right.
A lot of these solutions are being now embedded in the core protocol of ONDC, and that's how the digital commerce space will change completely.
Amazing. And that is so incredible to see because the friction layer is basically being removed from people coming on board and participating in digital commerce in a big way. Do you want to talk about some of the solutions that came up in the hackathon, which ONDC is integrating with, just to highlight some success stories? Because I'm sure it was young participants who built these solutions. So I'm sure these stories can inspire a lot of people.
Absolutely. So let me share one success story of a participant who was the first winner also around cataloging as a service. So the problem statement which they were working that in a kirana or a grocery store, there are two problems. One is that how can somebody dynamically keep on updating their price of the stock because the CPG players will keep on correcting the MRP as and when required, factoring the inflation and deflation of India. And second is that how do they maintain whether the stock is available or not so that the stock out level
Yeah.
when a customer buys a product is very, very low, which enhances the customer experience also. So what somebody has done is that they say that the shopkeeper is now the shopkeeper or the customer is only required to scan the invoice and upload it onto a one single number of WhatsApp. What happens because of that is that the WhatsApp interface, through their proprietary technology, extracts all the information of the invoice and updates the inventory altogether. So the invoice already has MRP, the updated MRP. The invoice already know how much stock has been sold to this customer. Uh, they take this information and correct the inventory master of the shopkeeper, which enhances the customer experience. This particular company, what they also do is that to ensure the right quality and the accurate images are stored in the inventory master, what they also do is that uh, they extract certain key informations of the product and use GS1 to extract the images from the source, right? And that gets updated on the inventory master management. So because of which what happens, the information which the customer gets around the product, the pricing, the quantity is absolutely accurate.
Wow, that's amazing. And because cataloging and inventory tracking were some of the biggest pain points for smaller sellers when starting their digital commerce. So I am sure this will enable things in a big way. So when you think about, challenges that ONDC is still facing in terms of its sheer scale and size, and I'm sure there are multiple problems yet to be solved within as a team. So how do you decide priority? Because there's just so much you can potentially do in a market like India and so many opportunities you can go after. So what is your decision making framework when it comes to identifying which is the top priority for ONDC?
Yeah. So, Shrishti, a couple of things is that see, uh, the fundamental ethos of ONDC is very, very clear that we are a customer first company. So long, and for us, customer fortunately is not one part of the ecosystem, but entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
So on one side, the end customer like you and me are also a customer, primary one who are transacting with ONDC network. On the back end, we also have the suppliers and the entire supply chain of India who are also a customer to us because we are obligated to deliver them a good experience while they interact on the network. On the third side, logistic service providers, which is a very, very important pillar of a digital commerce, is also a customer. So as a company, we need to ensure that everybody at the day end is happy. The stock owner, the stock buyer, and the stock transporter.
Yeah.
Only then we can make a successful ecosystem out of it. Now, the technology layer or the tech stack of India today is at a very, very different maturity level. Right? There are various type of players, the larger players and the smaller players, and the technological maturity of each of them is at a different level. So what ONDC does through its primary protocol is to balance that out and brings everybody at a same acceptable level so that there's a basic maturity level we try to introduce. And then we identify what are the problem statements which we need to solve. For example, cataloging was one problem statement which we picked up big time. Right? Customer rating is something which is very, very important. And I won't say customer rating, it's like ecosystem rating. The seller's rating, the customer rating, that's very, very important to build a trust. If a if a seller's rating is as high as 4, the customer is also comfortable buying from that particular seller. And the seller is also comfortable selling a cash on delivery to that particular buyer. Right? So what ONDC does is that identify these problem statements and cherry picks them basis the priority which we believe internally as per our framework, and then try to crowdsource solution and help network solve it for network. Ultimately, as I said, that we are the club owners, right? I would not decide at what tune should be played. That's for the crowd to decide. So let them communicate and interact with each other. ONDC operates on a user council concept, wherein uh, that's a decision, primarily decision making authority, who decides what the network enablement should do quickly. And ONDC has only one seat in that user council, while rest all the seats are owned by the network participants across the cohort. Some are from represented by big platforms who have got a very high tech maturity, and we also have very representation for very small mass level of players who are ultimately need to get benefit.
And then how do you end up working with some of these local participants? So if if someone watching this wants to reach out to you to explore a potential partnership with ONDC, so what kind of collaborations would you be exploring as a team?
Yeah, so anybody can join us on three parts. They can join us as a buyer network participant. The viewer can join us as a seller network participant, or they can also join us as a seller directly. Right? A buyer can buy anything which is available on the network, be it a B2B transaction or a B2C. But on a B2B, for example, logistics is something which has got a phenomenal use case on the network.
Yeah.
Smaller sellers do not have access to B2B kind of rates and delivery tags or SLAs in the market. Just imagine if a bakery just next to your office needs to send a cake to me in, say, Green Park, they will have to buy, they have to subscribe to Rapido or some uh, Dunzos of the world,
Yeah.
where they may not be offering the standardized low cost delivery time. What ONDC has done is that we have aggregated all the demand side, we have aggregated all the supply side. So any big player in logistics, right from DTDC to India Post to Ola to Shadowfax of the world, everybody is a network participant.
Okay.
So any seller can simply go to ONDC enabled buyer application of logistics and buy logistics as a service at a very cheap price, right? And also ensuring to the right acceptable SLAs of the industry. So somebody can join us on the buyer application side, buyer side. Somebody can join us on the seller application side. For example, uh, if there's a local Kirana stores who wants to have incremental business to what they are actually doing currently, they can join ONDC through any of our seller network participant, such as say Kiko Live is one seller network participant when it comes to grocery domain, and that will help them enhance the business significantly. Somebody who is very tech savvy and who understands and has the capability to develop simplified solution to very complex problems. We are always welcoming them to speak to us, present to us what they are solving and how they are solving, and then the ball is in our court to ensure that we find a way for them to join the network. Right? Because so long they have got a good product, we will figure out a way how to help them and join.
Interesting.
Uh,
And just two follow on questions to that. So, one, tactically, if a business wants to register, do they go on the ONDC website or do they
yeah.
go on Zomato or like any other platform's website to sign up? Because how do they leverage the pricing? If they are going directly to the platforms, then they will be charged the same fees that the platforms have been charging versus, coming directly to ONDC. So, how does that work?
Yeah, so see, so when somebody wants to join ONDC, they can go to our website and then they can either fill up a intent form which is posted onto our website, or there is a WhatsApp Sahayak common number which is available on our website. They can just say a hi on that WhatsApp number, and there's a conversational interface which follows, which helps them solve all the problems. Whenever and our website very transparently also mentions that who are the participants who have already joined the network under various domains. So, example, if you go and say who are the participants in fashion, the fashion domain, you will see Snapdeal is one of the participants. And after
Right.
that, the seller can independently contact, and the contact details of Snapdeal POC is also mentioned there, which is updated very regularly and frequently. So the phone number and email ID both are mentioned. The seller can independently also go and contact with Snapdeal, and they will naturally get ONDC preferential rates because the company does not have anything called ONDC and non-ONDC. When we
Right.
say about a participant, it's an ONDC network participant. So they
Okay.
do not have a smaller funnel called non-ONDC transaction. Uh, but having said that, what is important to know, Srishti, is that when a network participants join the network, in the early days of the teething days, they may have something called non-ONDC funnel also.
Hmm.
But as they mature their journey and their operations stabilize, the gap between ONDC and non-ONDC journey eventually moves to zero. And what is the timeline? Is like approximately 2 to 2.5 months from the date they join. Because nobody would want to stake their entire business on one network without testing the stability of the network. And it takes
Absolutely.
time for them.
Yeah. And when you talk about the impact that you've been able to see in the logistics space, because you said that there are 12 partners that you end up working with. So, what kind of impact are you seeing with these logistics players?
Yeah, so there's a direct uh, P&L benefit, which may interest all your viewers from the finance or the founders fraternity. Uh, as I explained that in hyperlocal domain, one of the network participant, Ola, is offering a flat rate of 25 rupee per order for up to 7 kilometers.
Yeah.
That's a earth-shattering rate, which I believe. I happen to be from a finance background, and I understand that it is almost half of what industry has to offer. Uh, whether this is sustainable and scalable, absolutely yes, because they are not. I don't believe they are burning something abnormally high. All they are doing is they're leveraging their proprietary EV fleet, wherein cost is naturally low.
Yeah.
Right? And Ola has maximum market share when it comes to EV fleet. So that's a P&L impact they have done. And that's why that's a call to action to all the players who needs logistics, come join the network, and you will have a direct benefit on the P&L. We are also seeing a lot of interest from innovative, very traditional players who have largely operating into media domain. For example, Jagran. Jagran is primarily known as a newspaper-based
Yeah.
company, but and they have got a huge customer base, and they have also found a logic and a value proposition in the network, and hence they have launched their own application called Coachday, which is a multi-domain application, and that will they will be presenting it to their customers to buy food, grocery, fashion, BPC products online. Right? So ONDC has helped them venture into a diversified business model altogether and never separate.
That's amazing. So, like, there is real impact in substantial legacy players and also new age platforms. So,
Absolutely.
when you think about the future, Anjani, what is the future that you envision as the future of digital commerce with ONDC? What impact do
Yeah.
you see it having? What impact do you see it having on the Indian economy?
Yeah. So see, in the recent economic survey, the government of India has projected that digital commerce to reach up to $300 billion by 2030. Uh, and this will be made feasible with lot of government interventions such as invention of Aadhaar, invention of UPI, ODOP, and of course ONDC. Right? These will be the key enablers there. Uh, I am very confident and I'm very excited to see how 2030 would look like because the way India transacts today will be very different. And I believe the world will move towards a conversational uh, commerce rather than a platform-centric commerce. Uh, Anybody who does highest amount of innovation and keeps the UI UX simplified will be the ultimate winner.
Yeah.
The discoverability across the horizon increased significantly, and there will be no limits to that. Because of it, what may happen is that the customers may get access to those products which existed in the market, but they were not discoverable to them. While the sellers will be able to fetch the right price because the primary rent-seeking tendency which exists in today's closed platform-centric approach will be challenged. Uh, the I also believe that there'll be a lot of work which should happen around sweating the existing assets and the underutilized capacity across the value chain will reduce significantly. Take an example of logistics for that matter. any company have not been able to utilize 100% of their logistics fleet. Uh, they will be able to monetize it, and that will also help bear a large societal impact in ensuring a greener society and better optimal utilization of nation's assets. Uh, that's what I believe, which will be a, a a democratic change in India's digital commerce ecosystem. I am personally looking forward for how the food ecosystem transforms because there's a very strong value proposition on the logistics side as well as from the margin perspective. And let's see how that moves.
Yeah, and any advice for founders and entrepreneurs who want to join the ONDC network? You also mentioned that there are 11 domains where ONDC is currently active. So if you just want to highlight what some of those domains are, I think that will really benefit the people.
Sure. So ONDC started its journey from two very complex categories, such as ride hailing and food. Thereafter, after making a success there, we gradually approach few more domains, such as grocery, beauty and personal care, fashion, home and kitchen, electronics, right? Uh, Pharma as a category. So lot of domains are there, and we see that content and gaming as an ecosystem is gonna be enabled on ONDC protocol very soon. They are in the testing beta phase currently, right? Uh, my advice to founders and business owners is very simple: that have an open mind and try to find a value proposition to join the network. The initial pace may be slow because this is a project which nobody in the world has ever done. The potential to initial success has been demonstrated uh, by clocking almost 10 million to 12 million transactions per month in just 1.5 years and being almost 12% of what current large platforms have been after
Yeah.
many years of work and burning billions of dollars. So the project will happen, the project will succeed. This will help you unlock your next level of growth, and this will always help you find your right customers. Think from a holistic approach, and sky is the limit of it.
Amazing. And again, how do they join the network? Is it just on the website or WhatsApp for people to have
Yeah,
clarity?
yeah. So they can join the network by accessing informations on the website or on the network. Otherwise, my email ID can be circulated to them. My email ID is anji@ondc.org. They can drop in an email to me, and we will take things forward from there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anjani. I think that this is so rich in terms of insights for anyone building or thinking about the ONDC network in a big way, because this is truly the next step and leapfrog for the Indian digital commerce industry. And if you think about, how much impact e-commerce has had in India, and you combine with that with the power of ONDC, truly, like you said, sky is the limit. So thank you so much for taking time out to share these valuable insights with our audience.
Thank you, Srishti, and it was a pleasure speaking to your audience. And I'm sure I've been able to add some value to their lives today.
Hopefully, you'll see a lot of inbound coming in your way.
Hope so. Thank you so much.